Who don't know, I'm Helen Mansfield. I'm the principal here, and this is one of our series of regular public Friday talks. Anyone is welcome, but this evening we're very delighted to have with us Katherine Parkinson, very well-known actress, who's going to talk to us about why she isn't a management consultant.
See, that was a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. And, you know, maybe I'll become a management consultant at some point soon.
No, I've seen the IT crowd don't do that.
Yeah, destroys some businesses. I don't know what the kind of fashionable job is at the moment, but when I was an undergraduate in the 90s, the milk rounds, I don't know if they still call them that, that's kind of what the sort of the coolest job that you could aspire to, certainly amongst me and my kind of undergraduate friends, was being a management consultant. So that's what I decided I would be, without actually knowing what it was. But I'm going to find out, and I'm going to apply to do it very soon.
Okay. But, I mean, really, I think you kind of knew you wanted to be an actress, didn't you?
I think, looking back, the times when I was quite unhappy, it was when I wasn't being creative in some way. And, you know, I feel sort of allowed to say that now, but back then that would have sounded, there wouldn't even have been a sentence I would have thought. But I think back in, you know, when I was sort of, as we were talking earlier, certain subjects when they weren't allowing for any kind of creative thought, when it was all sort of a bit by rote learning and things, I think that's when my mood dipped quite extremely. And I think, you know, if you do have a kind of creative leaning, I think, God forbid, you don't sort of make sure you do it, because I think it's sort of not good for you if you don't find space for that in your life. It doesn't mean you have to do a profession that involves it, but you need to kind of be creative if that instinct is there. I hope that doesn't sound too actressy, but there you are. And I think I wanted to go to Oxford for many reasons, but one of the main reasons was I knew about the drama scene, because there's not a specific drama course. I think that means there's a particularly vibrant extracurricular drama scene, and I owe that scene really for discovering acting in a more proper way, and it was sort of that led to doing it. Yeah.
So before you went to university, when you were a child, did you know that this was your creative outlet, or did you just?
Well, I went to Sunday school on Sundays, and
done.
Thank you. And I was often cast as the angel Gabriel because I have quite curly hair. And that's actually a really good part because...
Did Gabriel have curly hair?
Yeah. Okay. And wings. And good costume, not too much stage time, but you're talked about beforehand. And then, you know, so it's a punchy part. And that's where I discovered I loved acting. So thank you, God. And then I, after that, was cast as one of 4 pucks in a school play, Midsummer Night's Dream, to convey the mutability of the character and to give enough girls a chance to play a good part. But there wasn't a lot of opportunity for acting at my school because it was a good grammar school, but, you know, teachers weren't paid to sort of stay behind and rehearse plays, so there wasn't an awful lot of opportunity. But I did sort of get a taste from it, from those things, yeah.
But when you went to Oxford, you studied classics.
Did I?
That's what I've read.
Okay.
What Wikipedia says.
Cool. That's Latin and Greek. Yes. Okay.
You remember it well.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, why that? Why?
I think I'm afraid. I think my reasons were, well, I liked the fact that classics seemed to be a degree that covered a lot of disciplines. So you could do language, you could do history. You know, the slightly mathematical side of the language I found quite enjoyable, and you almost didn't have to narrow down your discipline. You could sort of do all of them. But also, I thought I was a bit of a romantic. I liked the idea of, you know, I like going to Greece, I like going to Italy, and I was very inspired by the idea of doing philosophy because I thought I'd find that interesting. But there wasn't a proper intellectual kind of need to because I was interested in lots of things, not because I just wasn't exclusively interested in Latin and Greek, but I thought, I like this. That seems to me to involve a lot of different disciplines and be a kind of a cool subject, which it was. I really enjoyed classics as a degree.
But why, there you are with your UCAS form, why university and not drama school if you were really sure this was what you wanted to do?
Well, I think my background, my parents are teachers, and I think education is, for lots of people, the focus. They believe, I think rightly, that education allows you to open doors. There was very much a feeling that if I had gone to just drama school, then what would I have done if it hadn't worked out? And, everyone knows how, precarious it is as a profession, principally because a lot of people want to do it and there aren't enough parts. And so I think I was hedging my bets, I suppose. But also Oxford, with Ouds, for instance, was a place to sort of spend my time doing plays. And, I felt really like a professional actress at Oxford who occasionally went to a tutorial. And I think that, for me, was an amazing training ground. I mean, thank goodness I became an actress. It would have been a really big waste of time. Because I certainly wasn't good in any of the plays. But it was a great, it was sort of like the rep system, because as far as I remember, I had, I was doing a different play a week at some points, which, it's an amazing way to get people used to the career of an actor. So, yeah. Yeah.
But you did do some work.
I can't remember it. No, I did
some work. I've read about it. You had lots of philosophy.
I did a 4-year degree, and thank God for that 4th year, because I started off well, and then it was only because of the competing things of the work and the plays. It wasn't because I didn't enjoy the work, but the plays took my focus away and took my learning space away. You can only have so much sort of. But then in my 4th year, I did get my act together and had some great tutors. I had Dr. Anita Remedies, who's here, and and I felt quite inspired by, I guess, the combination of doing some work, and so I lent in a bit more to the subject. That it meant I really enjoyed it towards the end, and got a perfectly good degree, but I think it was that 4th year that saved me. If I'd had a 3-year course, I don't think I'd have been in a good shape for the 10 exams.
You've been in a position to apply to be a management consultant.
I'd be a management consultant by now.
So you were interested in philosophy. What were the bits that grabbed you?
I suppose the thing I just found tricky with the classic side was that you had to get through an awful lot of material. So, you would have to read all of Pindar's odes, you'd have to read all of Thucydides, you'd have to read all of Euripides to be able to do well. And I could really, I just don't think I'm not very good at consuming things quickly. Whereas with the philosophy, I felt like I could, every bit made quite a salient point. You couldn't sort of, so I sort of took my time and felt it stayed in my brain a bit more, and I felt a little bit like it was more creative perhaps than some of the drier. I loved doing the Euripides and the plays, Aristophanes, but when it was history, literature, I found it quite long. I'm being honest, and I know some people love the history, and that is just not my bag. And some of it was wonderful, but some of it, I like the poetry, but I didn't love the slightly drier stuff. Whereas the philosophy felt a bit more creative. When I had my tutorials with Dr. Wilts and Dr. Archimedes, I just felt a little bit, it just felt like a more open starting point. I didn't go in thinking, I haven't read all this. it felt like it felt more intellectually vigorating for me at the time, and I felt like I could start again because I also only started doing the philosophy a bit later, so I didn't bring the I wasn't badly read in it because it hadn't started. So yeah.
I remember when I was doing my history degree and being very perhaps more prosaic on the prosaic side, my sister-in-law, who's now my sister-in-law, but she was a couple of years younger than me, and she was doing PPE. And I came up to visit her and was looking through a sort of mock final paper of hers and saying, this is all easy. And she was getting very cross with me because philosophy was really her thing and she cared about it a lot. But the thing that I particularly remember was the question that, again, you've written about in a philosophy magazine, an Oxford philosophy magazine, about the Nagel essay, the very famous Nagel essay, What is it like to be a bat? Which I think the answer is, what is it like to be a human being? But I mean, you've talked about philosophy informing you as an actor. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, that's something that stayed with me. You know, I remember that just the sort of notion of empathy, I suppose. What's it like to be a bat? It's not what it's like for you to be a bat. It's what's it like for a bat to be a bat. And I always think about that with acting because there are kind of some school of thoughts that think. You know, I've been reading about The Power of the Dog, the new Jane Campion film, and Benedict Cumberbatch, who's undoubtedly one of the best actors we've got, but you know how I think I was reading on the train about how there's a scene where he castrates a bull and he sort of does it for real on the camera, and how he'd been sort of living as a cowboy as much as possible for the previous, you know, and because he's a father, but because I'm a mother of two, you know, I certainly don't feel that I would allow myself or would have the privilege to do that now. But I also wouldn't be inclined to do that because I've always felt, and you know, the results are amazing in that case. And I'm not giving that as an example because I think research is great and investing into that life is as much as possible is important to get kind of a proper insight. But sometimes actors sort of will say, you know, you've got to become the person, and that was actually, and I used to worry that because no matter how much I invested, I wouldn't think that I actually had become the person. There are moments, those quite holy moments on stage where you do feel like, you know, if you get upset, you're getting upset as the character. But I don't want to ever try to sort of undermine somebody's real experience by suggesting that by imagining to have been a victim, you know, in the Holocaust, that I would therefore know what that feels like. I find I'm uncomfortable with that, and I felt
Your
like
uptight barrister is pretty convincing.
Right.
Speaking as an uptight
Thank
barrister.
you.
So, you know.
Well, another life. But yeah, I think so things like that. I think you can sort of feel like you can get a pretty good idea. But the difference between objective and subjective experience, you know, that's quite an interesting thing to apply to acting, I think, and that's a philosophical thing that I could, you know, directly just have a think about based on my learning. Yeah, that's.
So what sort of things did you act? What are the parts that stand out for you in Oxford, or the productions that you think actually that was fun or good? Or
I mean, I remember doing a Philip Ridley play that I really enjoyed. I remember doing the Irresistible Rise of Arturo Ui, you know, quite drunk. So that's not something I'm proud of, but I wasn't the only one. I did the Greek play, which I really enjoyed doing, but I don't think it was my finest hour, if I'm honest, or finest 3 hours. In Greek, yeah. Well, Greek.
did you have subtitles or subtitles?
No.
Oh wow! How many people came?
I mean, a lot of school trips came, and they were following and looking, going, she's not saying that. So yeah, that was. But I did do some of it correctly, but it was a lot to learn. The Oxford Review, and plays that people had written, you know, new plays. But yeah, I just think the drama scene is brilliant at Oxford, and I'm sure it's still. I did Titania in Oriel College, and really enjoyed that. The shows in the summer Shakespeare shows, Much Ado About Nothing. You know, which I may yet do again. And, you know, I've remembered recently I've done it, but I can't remember doing it because your brain when you're younger is so malleable and good at sort of learning things and then discarding them quickly. but yeah, it's just a great drama scene. I'm sure it still is here.
Yeah. And what, apart from remember to write your essays, what would your advice be for student acts? I'm going to throw it out. I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of questions. I'm going to ask people what they think. But I mean, are the things you think you learned from that? Because I know that you told me you did go to drama school for a while afterwards. But are there things you think you learned from the rep-like system of Oxford that you wouldn't have learned if you'd gone to drama school?
Personally, I found my acting experience at Oxford much more valuable. It was longer. I was here for 4 years, and LAMDA, I was there for four terms, I think. But I really enjoyed LAMDA too for different reasons. But the people I met at university doing plays are the ones that the friendships that have endured and have been creatively, quite. I'm still writing and working with the people I met at university. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, do you write and do you direct as well?
No, I would never direct.
Why not?
I wouldn't want to be directed by me. I definitely think I'm not a director, but I have started to write. I wrote something called Sitting, which is on BBC iPlayer, and I've got a few television writing projects now, and it's taken a while to feel when you work with lots of really good writers like our friend Laura Wade, and it's almost puts you off doing it yourself because you see how good they are, but so really it would have been better if I'd worked with lots of bad writers. So
I wanted to ask you about that, because obviously everyone here will have seen Katherine on television a lot and in films, but I particularly remember seeing you in Laura Wade's play. Laura Wade, for those who don't know, wrote Posh, which was the film The Riot Club, and a number of other quite well-known plays, but she wrote a play for you, didn't she? I mean, that was a part she wrote with you in mind, I think.
Yeah, she did write it for me.
Called Home I'm Darling. It's about a woman who decides to become a surrendered 1950s
Well
housewife.
done for remembering that title. My husband's called it every variation of that, but not Home I'm Darling.
Laura's
it's Darling I'm Home.
claims he wrote it, and so I have to remember it to be loyal to him.
Yeah.
The title, not the play. He doesn't claim to have written the play.
Yeah. Yes. What was your question?
Well, just so you're working. I'm not sure I quite got to it. Sorry. No, my fault. No, I mean just. Well, partly about working on stage and partly about working in that. I mean, was some of it improvisation or working with in that?
Well, we had a workshop process, and she always had the idea of a woman living obsessed with the 50s, and living, in a house that was sort of perfect 50s, but then how that choice would then impact on her life outside of the home, and we sort of improvised bits of it, but and she says there are whole improvised sentences in it, but I can't remember having said them. But it was obviously very much entirely her, but just with, I suppose, a voice kind of helped along by me. It was a really nice way to work because it was a hybrid. Quite often in the industry, I think sometimes producers sit between writers and directors and actors, and the best results always come when you're all in the room together. And I don't know why there isn't more. We sort of think of people like Mike Leigh doing improvisatory stuff, but why can't there be more of it? So much comedy. I did something in Australia recently where we got to improvise around the scene, and it was completely liberating. And it's not always what you want. I've also done things where that hasn't worked, but I think, with the right kind of people involved and, editing, it can be a really great way to work. We're hoping to work together again, Laura and I. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I won't pry too much. But, and do
As
you?
management consultants.
Do you prefer comedy because you prefer it, or is that something that particularly happened to you? You like doing both, or it's
Comedy's fun because there's some really funny people in comedy. It's nice to just be with people that are funny. And I think I've always just really enjoyed being made to laugh. It's quite and I honestly think if I have any comic ability myself, it's just come from a sort of a desire to prod people to make me laugh. That's what I think, because I just enjoy being around funny people, and I do like drama, but I felt sometimes I think there's a sort of expectation that if you're a comic actor, you need to then prove yourself by doing a sort of drama where your child goes missing, and it felt like a bit of a trope, that, and it's like, oh God, do I have to sort of do the opposite? But when I like doing things like Home I'm Darling, where it's everything sort of together, but it's a little bit, I suppose, quirky, a bit unusual, heightened perhaps, not necessarily, but I don't particularly have a desire to do one or the other. I like the idea of doing both together, at the same time, in the same thing.
Do you make people laugh? Did you make people laugh when you were a child? Do you make people laugh off stage, or are you the comedian who's...
I take myself very seriously. I try to take myself very seriously. No, thinking about the thing we were saying about Nagel and the method acting thing, I think part of my trouble with things has been trying to take what I do seriously, and LAMDA was great for that. If people are thinking about drama school, if you're struggling to sort of take yourself, say I want to be an actor and commit to it, which I did struggle with from a family where that was quite a sort of odd choice, and I think the training allows you to sort of invest a bit more fully. Some of the people that left Oxford to go into acting straight away didn't give themselves very long to kind of make a living, because you panic if you haven't, whereas if you've invested some time, and I know it costs a lot of money, but there are ways around that. But sorry, that sounds really, but no, there are scholarships and things, or just don't pay. But if you've invested a good few months or a couple of years or 3 years into the training, then you give yourself at least that when you get out to try and make a living from it. And I think that's quite a useful thing, because I've seen really good actors who were at Oxford who did a lot of acting, try it for a year, have a difficult year, and then go, oh God, I've got to, do a law conversion course.
Yeah. I never tried to act, just in case anyone's worried about it.
No, I know, directly. But, or not, but I think that's a really valuable part of drama training for people who have been to university.
Yeah. And so what happened after you left university?
I went to LAMDA because Rory Kinnear and Patrick Kennedy had gone to LAMDA, and they were my friends they were my year, but a year above, because they hadn't done 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then an ex-boyfriend of mine had written a play for the Edinburgh Festival that transferred to the Bush. So LAMDA kindly let me leave to do that, and I flounced off thinking, here we go. And then after that play ended, I was thoroughly unemployed for quite a long time. So it was a bit difficult, because I'd missed the kind of the fun bit, the really fun bit of LAMDA, where you do a show and all that. The TV course, which is supposed to be a lot of fun, so I sort of missed all the fun bits and sat at home waiting for the phone to ring, But so I didn't do the full 2-year course at LAMDA, but I had the Lionel Bart scholarship, which I thought was Lionel Blair scholarship for a long time, but the Lionel Bart scholarship, RIP both. So I didn't, wasn't losing money or anything, and they were very conscientious about getting the people that needed support at LAMDA especially. Yeah. But so I was unemployed for a bit, and I can't really remember I think I did 2 plays at the Gate back to back for £140 a week, and was thinking, how am I going to sort of sustain living in London and doing theatre? And I can remember going to a lady who supported the Gate's huge house in Notting Hill one night, and she said, I think it's really important we don't pay the actors much, because then you do it for the love of it. And I sort of had to sort of not say, that's not, you're just going to get, people with private incomes, and there aren't that many of those. So, but I eventually got a part in Doc Martin, and then I managed to make it financially viable. But it was about surviving, to be honest, with what I was earning, and being able to stay in it and earn a living. But television is the way to do that. So you can't, in my opinion, just do theatre with gaps. You know, you've got to mix it up, ideally.
And do you think that is a problem? That idea that actually it's really quite hard to get into theatre and make a living out of it now?
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of the constituency of people who become actors, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because a lot of the people, I can remember I had a really good agent when I got out of LAMDA, and he told me to turn down a very nice play at it was at Watford Palace, because he wanted me to be available, because when you're young, you know, it's younger, you want to be availability is key, is what they always say. But I couldn't afford to be available, and I wanted to do the play at the Watford Palace. I really liked the play, and I turned it down, you know, and it was, you know, in many ways sound advice, but I remember sitting at home, not working, you know, not knowing what I was going to do, and I never turned down a part. Well, I have turned down things, but you know, I didn't take that advice again, because I think there are a lot of people, certainly at drama school, you know, that could afford to turn down the parts and wait for and that is I mean, that's fine, but it's about the majority of people who can't afford to do that. Then they have to leave the industry, and that's a lot of talent. I worry about what's happened in recent times, because I don't know how. It's a really delicate thing when you're starting out. You sort of depend on getting the next job while you're finishing the one before, to think, yes, I'm going to make this work. And I don't know what the pandemic must have done to a lot of, you know, people starting out in their 20s. It must have made something already difficult much harder. And I just hope whatever talent might have left will find a way to come back, because the industry needs it, you know. And yeah.
Do you like doing television more than stage, or vice versa, or film?
I mean, I think I like theatre most. I actually think I do. I know that's a bit of a, you know, I know a lot of actors say that, but I do. You get left alone by directors. You don't get any notes for 2.5 hours. You can do your own thing and then get the notes. You can get quite lost in the performance. You get, you know, I like it when the lights go out and there's a focus and a sort of, almost holiness to the sort of process of theatre, where it's quite meditative. Everyone sort of relaxes, and the audience wants to relax and be told a story, and I feel much more invested, and I have believed, you know, having said all the stuff about method acting being nonsense, I'm going to take it all back now and say I have absolutely felt like I've lived somebody else's life sometimes on stage. Not for long, but I have absolutely believed it. So I've completely contradicted myself from earlier, so forget I said the earlier bit.
That's all right, Walt Whitman, it's fine. Really, I'm going to throw it open. I know lots of people have questions, but if you weren't an actor, what would you really be?
I think you know the answer to that. I would like to have done what you do. That was the dream, but I don't think I could have ever done it. That's why it was fun to play Caroline in Defending the Guilty, although she wasn't a QC. She wanted to be one and wasn't. So, yeah.
She caught many of the less brilliant bits of barristers. Okay, well, I know there are people here with mics, and I'm sure there will be people who have questions they want to ask Katherine who are not me. So who's going to start?
Thanks for the thanks for the talk. It was really interesting and enjoyable. I was wondering, you were talking about doing the Oxford Review when you were at Oxford, and you talked a bit about improvisation as well. But I was wondering about improvising comedy and whether you had done a lot of improvisation when you were with the review, and then whether when you were doing things like the IT crowd, have you had lots of experience improvising and going off script with comedy in particular in your career?
Yeah, I did the Oxford Review, and then when I did it, there was a sort of a rebellion group who were called, I think, the other Oxford Review or something, and they were much funnier than us, so that was a shame. I was in the wrong one, but the guy I did it with was Jack Williams, who's gone on to, with his brother, he produced Fleabag and lots of things, so he's done really well. I didn't improvise in that. I was very much doing, I think, as far as I remember, what was scripted. But I think when you're a student, you don't kind of decide that you're a writer or an actor or a director quite so. It's such a precious time, that, because I think back, and we all used to sort of improvise, which is writing, and not think anything of it. And then when you get into the industry, you sort of forget that sort of playfulness and that kind of fluidity of what you do, and you sort of go, okay, I'm an actor, I don't write, so, you know. And I think it's a really precious time, and if you are doing sort of improvising and stuff like that, you know, remember you're writing and you've got, you know, abilities to do that, and the quicker you can actually sort of get it on a computer and in a script form and allow yourself to be a writer, the better, really. Because if you just carry on improvising as an actor and not getting full credit, you'll forget that you've got that ability, and then you'll never do it again. Yeah.
And then the person next to Alex.
Thank you very much. There's a scene in, this is really weird, isn't it? There's a scene in Defending the Guilty where Caroline talks in an interview a bit like this. Is it quite strange reflecting
Yeah.
on what it's like to be an actor? Is there a weird sort of double effect there for you?
Yeah, I mean, I find life really weird all the time. I don't know if that's a normal experience. I feel like everything is like a dream, but yes, I know exactly the scene you mean, and it's my best friend in the audience who talks to me in that scene, and
We're not best friends.
yeah, you've ruined it. So yeah, but yeah, it is weird, but I find everything weird, and I'm not on any medication.
Oh, yes. So,
Okay. So in times where things were not working out the way you wanted them to, and if it's for like a sustained period of time, how do you keep yourself motivated? Like, how did you hold on to the dream, especially when you were like just out of university or the college?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm not really sure, but I think probably all the time I spent at university doing plays probably gave me a confidence that it was, you know, even though you're students, you have paying audiences to sort of the old fire station and Burton Taylor, if they're all still, you know, in the Oxford Playhouse, and so I think it's for that reason you don't get that experience at Landor. It's a really good way, or drama school. It's a really good way of working out whether you can, you know, land a laugh, be heard, hold an audience, and that is a valuable thing to hang on to if you're not getting the work. If you've made it work as a student, then you know, you'll probably make it work as a professional. I came back to Oxford years later with my then boyfriend, now husband, who was an ugly sister in the panto, and I love sitting in. I went to see that show 3 times. And it was a really nice experience to sit in the Oxford Playhouse in the audience and sort of, you know, feel grateful for it, because that's a great theatre and a great place to do plays. So I think if you've got, you know, experience from doing it, then I think you've got to trust that that's going to count for something.
do you think you learned something from watching other people's student plays, or were you too busy to watch other people's student plays?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of talent in this, and I think student plays can sometimes be a bit more playful and have that sort of exciting energy that I mean, I have to be honest, as a mother of quite young children, I don't get to the theatre as much as I should and I'd like. But yeah, I think I'd probably rather see a student play than a professional play.
There's an excellent one, sponsored by Mansfield Plays that Sam's directing at the Burton Taylor Theatre. Is it 9 o'clock next week? Is it the late show? 9:30. For those of you who can stay awake. Anyway,
That's a
it's
good
going to be
kick-off
brilliant.
time.
And there's a question here at the back here.
Yes, I was wondering what it was like working with Martin Clunes. I mean, he had to be so serious in that a lot of the time. And did you ever try and make him laugh? And were there any funny outtakes? I don't think I've ever seen any.
Martin Clunes is the funniest person I think I've ever worked with. So I know he plays a very serious character, but that was my first television job. And I just thought everybody was going to make me laugh as much as he did. And but yeah, he's very professional, but he's in hysterics most of the time.
He was funny behind the scenes. Yeah, I would
Very,
think.
yeah.
Thanks. I was just wondering if you had any advice for people starting out. Like, I know you kind of got stuck in when you got to Oxford, but for people who are sort of interested in acting, don't really know what their sort of strengths are, if you had any advice for people like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's not... my husband's an actor, and my husband didn't go to university. He left school at 16, but he is the son of actors and was a child actor, which I know sometimes people sort of think that's a dangerous sort of kind of way in, because it's quite difficult often for child actors to sort of start again, but that worked for him. I think there's completely different ways, and I've been asked by people, would you recommend drama school? And I think for some people it's a good thing, and for some people it might not be. I'm doing a job at the moment filming with 2 people playing my children, and one, she's 22 and she's been acting on and off since she was a child, and I don't think she should spend whatever money it is to go to drama school. I think she should keep doing what she's doing. But then the boy who plays my son is younger and at the Brit School, and I think it probably would be quite good for... I think it depends on your circumstances and your experience, and I just think if the passion for it is there and the sort of desire is there, that gives you the kind of stamina to kind of pursue it. And I sometimes am baffled by actors who get really fed up with long runs of plays, because that you're doing what you want to do, and I think if the passion is there, I honestly think that will carry you through. All I would say is that there isn't one way to do it, and I think the industry's changed so much now. I wouldn't recognise it. Now that there's all these opportunities on YouTube and things, if I was starting out now, I hope that I would have done sketches with my friends and put them, because you don't have to now go through the commissioning process. I had a friend from university, and we wanted to do a radio show, but the Radio 4 has so many, really not many slots, and the competition was so huge. But now you can just do a podcast, or you can... My husband recently did a podcast that then got turned into a play. Everything's a bit more fluid, and I think if there's ways of being proactive in that way, that's amazing too. Yeah.
Do you have to do auditions online?
I haven't done auditions online, but I think self-tapes have become a big thing.
That's the thing I was thinking.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm old enough to sort of not have done a lot of that, but when I have done it, I've done it really badly. I had to be told by my agent that you don't leave gaps for the other lines. You have to have somebody reading them in, which I didn't know. So that was unfortunate. But yeah, I think the self-tape world is a cruel world, because I don't know if people have done it here, but you don't hear back at all. It's just bad manners. You don't know whether they've received it. You don't know whether they've all sat around and laughed at it. You don't. I don't think. I think that's. I just think that's really hard, because it's often the younger actors that have to do loads of it, and you don't get paid for learning loads of lines, spending hours doing it, and yeah, I think that's an unfortunate evolution of the industry, to be honest.
You mentioned that your experiences of drama at Oxford is mainly theatre, which I think is the case for most people. Was there, did you have to adjust your approach to acting when you started to do more screen, after going to LAMDA?
Yeah, I mean, they're very different disciplines, and you really don't need to talk as loudly, which took me a while to realise on the IT crowd. But you just, I think that's the sort of thing you can only find out from experience, and just know that everyone learns for the first time. I remember on Doc Martin not understanding why everyone wasn't chatting all the time. I was sort of so excited to be there, and then you realise that they're long days and that you have to pace yourself and you have to conserve energy for the scenes, and but all of those things you just learn from doing. I guess that's a good side to self-tapes. At least it gives you filming experience. I hadn't even seen myself on camera until my first TV job, and now with iPhones and stuff, I'm sure there's a much better awareness of what's reading, how big the performance needs to be to sort of register stuff. So I guess that's a good aspect to the self-tape thing.
2 hands here.
Putting my hand up at school. Thank you. It's been a pleasure listening to some of your stories. From your journey, could you share maybe a high point, something that was quite exhilarating for you and inspirational, and also, to the contrary, something that was a real low point, and how you may have handled that? Good question or not?
It's a really good question. I wish I'd had it a few hours ago. I could think about it. I can tell you something that managed to be both at the same time, which was when I was doing Home I'm Darling, the actor who played my husband brilliantly, Richard Harrington, was ill, and Rufus Norris, who runs the National, we had a full audience waiting. It was all last minute, and he said, I'll go on with the book, will you do it with me? And I thought, I can't possibly, I don't know how that would work. And anyway, I agreed to do it, and hadn't talked through any of it, found myself suddenly snogging the director of the National thing. So we hadn't talked through whether we would kiss. I thought, should I kiss him? He's my boss. Me Too has happened. But as I lay on the bed kissing Rufus Norris, I thought this is both a high point and a low point in a way. I may have lost my job. I may have overstepped the mark. Anyway, yeah.
Hi, what was your experience like doing the film The Guernsey Literary and Potato Pie Society?
Oh, I really enjoyed doing that film. We didn't film it on Guernsey. We filmed it in Devon, not far from where my parents live, because the kit to be flown on and off would have been so expensive. But I went to Guernsey afterwards because I was so taken with it. I wanted to see Guernsey, and then Sark, which is a lovely, lovely place to go with young children on holiday. But I enjoyed that very much because it was Penelope Wilton was. I grew up watching her and really enjoyed working with her, and Lily James was gorgeous, and it was just a very nice cast and a nice, lovely experience. Yeah.
Anyone? Yes, there's a hand right at the back there.
Thank you. Yeah, extremely enjoyable this evening. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed Pandemonium, which you did over lockdown. Would you have some further insights into your horrible histories, colleagues, and the weather, the loo lockdown situation? Lots of insights into all our consciousness, I think, with that, wasn't there? And you were living it, we were all living it, still are.
Yeah, well, I'm actually in the middle of filming a series of that. I finish it next week. But
Joy.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we had to stand down because of COVID, but we're back on next week. But yeah, it's not so much about the pandemic, so I don't know if it's going to be called Pandemonium, but it is Pandemonium. So look out for the same cast, but without any mentions of the pandemic, because no one wants to hear about it in TV shows, apparently. And I understand why. So nobody's commissioning anything that
mentions the P word.
Mentions it, yeah.
How did you cope in various ways?
Well, my lockdown was mainly about homeschooling my children, which was really enjoyable. Yeah.
The better person than many people, or you're a liar.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hiya. So aside from avoiding the life of management consultancy, I was just wondering if you had a professional achievement that you're most proud of.
It's incredibly naff to say it, but I'm really proud of my Oxford degree, which I consider to be a professional achievement. And I think that by becoming an actress, I sort of pretended to be an actress at Oxford, and then I became what I had pretended to be. And I always felt, I feel like I did the right thing, because that feels more me than any other jobs like management consultancy, where I would have been pretending to be it. And I felt like I pretended to be an Oxford student. And the Oxford degree, the 10 exams, and just a number, so I knew I hadn't just sort of waffled my way to, the answer, has for me felt like a massive confidence boost, because a lot of acting is being rejected. Even if you get the part, people will have different opinions on your performance in it. There's not a lot of kind of tangible achievement, that you can sort of get proper confidence from. And I have to say something that I do get proper confidence from is my Oxford degree, and it's really reassuring when you do things like Taskmaster, which I did recently, and it came across as somebody with very low intelligence, because you think, no, I got that, and that must have some validity.
Okay. Oh, yep.
Apart from just getting involved a lot in like the drama scene, what would be your advice for someone like looking to go to drama school after uni?
I think the big advantage that the younger generation have now is the platforms to put content out. That's massive. I mean, that's sort of a complete game changer, and I think that just to do it, to get a camera or to get a microphone and to splurge, because things like this country, all the best sort of new comedy is so much more easy to find now, because it can be created independently without some commissioner giving you quite a lot of money. So I think that's what I would say. I would say don't wait for opportunities to come to you, because you've got more power now than ever before to sort of to create the content. Content sounds like a really, well, that's what they say, isn't it, on Instagram?
Yeah.
Content.
Yeah. So, here.
Sorry, where was that hand again? Hi, thanks so much for being here.
I really enjoyed like everything that you've been in, but I really liked Defending the Guilty the most. Is there going to be another season?
No, there isn't.
That's so sad.
There was.
I know.
There was going to be, and I saw the scripts, and my character was obsessed with her Alsatian dog, which I was genuinely worried about because I'm really scared of Alsatians. But there isn't going to be another one because it was a real, sort of victim of the pandemic, basically, because it was commissioned and it was all ready to go, and then availability went. But I am working with the writer on something else. So, but I loved it, and I loved, being a wannabe QC, and I was hoping to do some research if we went again and shadow somebody, but hasn't happened. So maybe I'll have to.
Rebecca Hall once had lunch with me to talk about being a barrister, and all I sat and thought was, "You're too beautiful and your suits are too well cut."
You wouldn't have thought that about me.
Utterly unconvincing.
Caroline had stains on her clothes, the character I played, so I think it would have been. But I mean, as an opportunity to sort of delve into your world, it would have been great to do another series of that, but no, we're not going again, unfortunately.
Hi. So basically, obviously, you managed to make that transition from acting into also writing. And for me, kind of the fear with writing is that I don't actually have anything interesting to say. So I was just kind of wondering when you got to the point when you realized this is something that's worth like writing and worth having people see, and like what those inspirations were.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that, because I think that's what that is a real sort of stumbling block. Even just sort of calling yourself a writer seems so grand. And of course, what happens is a certain type of person starts doing it really from the get-go, and people like yourself who might have really interesting things to say to sort of question themselves and don't do it. And I think that it is a big stumbling block, just sort of. And that's why things like improvisation are so good, because you don't really give it a name and you just do it, and it's a bit more fluid and organic, or being in a room with a writer who sort of, gives you scenarios. But I would just sort of say that is my regret, is that I didn't get on with that sooner. And although I've written one thing now, it's about sustaining it. Whether I will actually come up with something again is, to be decided. But I think it's all the advice from writers that are prolific is just do it. And I think that I think if you have that, if you're asking yourself, what have I got to say, that's a really good start. It's like the Socratic thing of not knowing you know nothing. And I think you don't have to write some big State of the Nation piece. I used to think I don't know enough politics. I'm not like David Hare. I couldn't come up with, I just don't read those bits of the papers enough. But it's actually women's voices that we really want more of. I remember Laura Wade saying about Home I'm Darling, she didn't think it was big enough, because it's essentially a play about a marriage, making a marriage work, and they don't split up, and they don't, there isn't some second act monologue where I talk about being abused, but that's why it's quite radical, because I think we quickly accept these tropes in drama, and then writers unconsciously ape the same things, and if you're thinking, oh, I don't have something important to say, I think that's probably a really good sign. You should just do what they call the vomit draft. Just vomit something up, and then pick through your vomit.
Thank you.
I think I might let I know Katherine used to drink before she went on stage. I can confidently say she's only had a cup of tea before this. But has anyone got any sort of last question before I take her off and let her have a drink? No, there we are. You're definitely allowed to drink now. Thank you very much for a really fascinating talk, Katherine. It's really great. And when we see you in the next thing, we think, oh, see her, she's interesting. And she knows about what it's like to be a bat. So next week, same time, we have Maggie Adderin-Pocock coming to speak what it's like to be an astrophysicist. And the sky at night. So she will be giving the inaugural Jocelyn Belvanel lecture. So I don't know if that's from Sublime to Ridiculous or Ridiculous to Sublime, whichever way around we'd have it. But anyway, do please come along if you want to. I'm really always welcome anyone who wants to come along. So do just show up. But in the meantime, thank you very much, Katherine. for a
Oh,
really
pleasure,
fascinating talk.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.